As we just heard from Heather, Chicago's revenue remains stunted by the pandemic, which has resulted in a $733 million budget shortfall for the coming year. Also today, City Council disclosed millions in investments toward violence prevention, child care assistance, and other programs using federal stimulus funds. And this comes as tensions have been heightened between the community and police in the wake of Officer Ella French's killing. And joining us to discuss all of this are Alderperson Carlos Ramirez-ROSA of the 35th Ward on the northwest side, Alderperson Jeanette Taylor of the 20th Ward on the south side, and Alderman Anthony BEALE of the 9th Ward also on the south side. Welcome all of you back to the program. Alderman BEALE, I'll start with you. A $730 million gap for the coming year. First, do you buy that that's an accurate number given all the pressures on the city budget? And how will City Council go about filling that gap?
It's absolutely not an accurate picture of the budget. When you look at everything that we're dealing with a $700 million pension payment that is due. And then you're looking at the fact that the administration did not bond an additional $500 million that was authorized to bond that we gave them last year. And so when you look at all these things, the administration is using federal CARES Act money for our day-to-day operation, and they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. All of these are one-time solution, one-time fixes that they're using. And so that 700 and something million that they're trying to use and get authorization out of the 900 and I think 980 million out of the CARES Act money, they're using that to plug our day-to-day operation whole. And so when you look at that, it's not going to work going forward.
And there's a lot of borrowing, as you mentioned, that's out there that they're still trying to figure out if that federal CARES Act money can pay back. Alderman Ramirez-ROSA, there are a lot of obligations in the coming year. $250 million in back pay to police officers if this new contract gets ratified. $2+ billion in pension payments. If COVID continues to rise, do you worry that that could make that budget gap grow even bigger?
Well, you know, I think the city of Chicago has been way too reliant on regressive taxation for a very long time. And when consumers stop spending, when you end up in a pandemic like we've been for the past, 18 plus months, of course you're going to see your revenue drop. I think that really speaks to the fact that our city really needs to rework where we get our revenue from. We need to get it from the folks who have the most ability to pay, not struggling people who have the least ability to pay, particularly during a pandemic where they're suffering job loss, where they're suffering, rising medical costs. The city is very lucky that we're getting a large infusion from the federal government. It's unfortunate, that the mayor is planning to play a shell game of sorts, to use that money to, make up some of the revenue that's lost, when we should be using that money to not just make up the revenue that was lost, but also invest in the communities the way that federal funding was intended to be used.
And Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor, the budget for the CPD this year has been about $1.7 billion, and Mayor Lightfoot said it's likely to go up. The Democratic Socialist Caucus has opposed this kind of funding for CPD. They've called for less funding. So would you support a budget that funded CPD to this number?
Of course not. Of course not. Us putting more money into CPD has not made our community safer. We have to make sure that people are able to make a living wage. We got to make sure that we're not taxing folks out. So are we going to go to a property tax increase again? Are we going to raise fines that are already over the top for people in our community? What will we do to balance budget? And in 2019, when folks from this caucus got elected, we talked about progressive revenues that would get the city to balance its budget. We're just not listening to.
All right.
And so, no, I would not support this budget.
So this is a debate that's going to play out over the next few months. I want to move to the killing of Ella French. Alderman BEALE, there's multiple reports here that the police turned their backs on the mayor when she sought to visit Officer French's partner in the hospital. Has the mayor lost the confidence of the police department?
Absolutely. Anytime you have the police department turning their backs on the current administration, it's really a slap in the face. As you can see, they've lost confidence in the leadership of not only the administration, but also the superintendent and the first deputy. And so when you look at all those things, how are we leading the police department? How are we, leading them into, making our communities a better place every single day, and it's just not happening. And so when you look at what we need to start supporting our police. We need to start understanding what they're going through, because they're going through a lot. And when you look at our budget, we're down over 1,200 officers right now, according to this budget. We're down 1,200. There's no reason that we should be down that many amount of numbers when we have record murders, crime running rampant in this city. So we need to do something drastic, because right now we have lost the city of Chicago.
So the difference of opinion here, presumably, on how to fund CPD. Alderman Rosa, Alderman Napolitano, one of your colleagues, had some very emotionally charged statements laying the blame on French's death partially with the Democratic Socialist Caucus because of the defund the police rhetoric. Your response to some of those comments?
I'm deeply disappointed in the comments by Alderman Nicholas Fasato, although I think if you're a Chicagoan that's paying attention, you're probably often disappointed by the extremist and reactionary comments that he often spouts. You know, I think that we need to be reasonable. And I think that reasonable Chicagoans will recognize that policy positions to improve public safety in the city of Chicago, like the ones that the Democratic Socialist Caucus and Progressive Caucus have put forward, that those are not responsible for people shooting Ella French and tragically taking her life. That is a tragedy. And in this moment, we need to come together to focus on real solutions to address the violence in our communities. And that's exactly what I'm committed to as a Democratic Socialist. That's exactly what I'm committed to as a progressive and as a proud Chicagoan who understands that in this moment, we need real solutions, not inflammatory talking points. So, you know, his comment is disappointing. It's preposterous. I'm shocked that anyone would say that or think that. But unfortunately, you know, given where it's coming from, it wouldn't be the first time.
Alderman Taylor, what about your reaction to that comment, you know, laying some of the blame here on Alderpeople that talk about defunding the police or are critical of the police?
Tell him to walk a day in my shoes. Tell him to wear this black skin that I wear, where I'm told every day that I'm not worthy. At the end of the day, his comments don't do anything but do what Trump wants it to do, which is tear this city apart. And so he's part of the problem and not the solution. I'm anti-accountability. That's what I'm anti. And so no matter who does the killing, they need to be held accountable, whether it's everyday citizens or the police. And so this rhetoric that he's talking about, that the blood is on our hands, the blood are on people who are city council who are okay with it being a tale of two cities. The people who need to be held accountable are the people who pulled the trigger, and they are arrested as we speak.
All right.
And so it's our responsibility to work together, and that's what he needs to do.
And Alderman Beale, another part of this controversy is what the first deputy superintendent, Eric Carter, apparently said about not wanting the police officers to wait around for the traditional tribute with bagpipes to a fallen officer. That apparently has really upset the rank and file. What are you hearing about that?
Well, that's another unfortunate comment that came out of the first deputy's mouth. You know, it's unfortunate, the situation that we're in. We've lost one officer and the other one is fighting for his life. And it's a tradition for the men and women of the Chicago Police Department to have that honor, to have that last walk with the bagpipers into the coroner's office. And you see the coroner's office contradicted what the mayor and the first deputy are saying. They're saying that they haven't changed their policy because of COVID. So once again, we're not telling the people the truth.
And I should interject, because the mayor said that the reason for those comments from the first deputy superintendent were because of COVID policy. And basically what you're saying is the coroner's office came out and said that's not actually the case.
The coroner's office put out a statement saying that was definitely not the case. And the bagpipers, they said that they never tried to interfere with anything. And it's a tradition. We have to make sure we honor the tradition of the men and women of the police department. When we have a fallen officer, that they are held to the highest regard, and that is just shows solidarity within the police department, and that should have taken place.
Alderman Ramirez-Rosa, you know, you helped negotiate the civilian police oversight ordinance that recently passed. You seem to have just competing factions, not only in city council, but the city, a group of folks that believe that the city does not have the back of the police department, that they don't understand the sacrifices police are making. And then on the other side, folks that believe that the police don't understand what, you know, over-policing is meant, especially for black and brown communities, and whether civil rights have been respected. How do you bridge this divide?
You know, the Empowering Communities for Public Safety Ordinance had the support of over 100 community organizations. It got the support of 36 aldermen. I can tell you, as one of the aldermen involved in those negotiations, every single one of those votes was earned. It took a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussion, a lot of compromise. We brought together a whole cross-section of the city council, moderate voices, centrist voices, progressive voices, to pass what is one of the most robust civilian oversight ordinances out of any major American city, to characterize accountability, to characterize democracy, inclusivity in decision-making in the ways in which our communities are policed as anti-police is wrong, and it's not rooted in reality. I think that if anyone were to do a comparative analysis, I think looking at the actions of big Democratic city mayors, to me, there's no question that Mayor Lightfoot has been one of the most, I would say, Blue Lives Matter mayors in the United States. 2/3 of our CARES Act money went to police overtime. The mayor just agreed to a 20% pay raise, including retroactive pay raises, which is going to cost the taxpayers of the city of Chicago a ton of money to give those police officers those pay raises. In addition to that, the mayor has come out and said some very, traditional, kind of tough on crime talking points. I don't really know what more the mayor could do at this moment in time to convince the police officers that she is giving them what they want.
So you're saying that mayor may not deserve the criticism from the police officers that she's getting right now. I'll end with you, Alderwoman Taylor. How do you talk to someone like Alderman Napolitano or Sposato that just don't see eye to eye with your perspective?
So let me say this about Sposato. I could have a conversation with him. We've agreed that politically we see things different, but I can have a conversation with him. But I cannot have a conversation with Napolitano, who just does not see anything but blue. And so there is no way around it. And I'm not there to convince them to change their thoughts. I'm there to work with them to figure out what's the compromise. How do we make safety available to everybody? How do we make communities have all of the things that their community has? And so that's not my job. I'm there as an organizer, and I'm going to organize around what the people in my community want to see.
All right. Well, a lot of discussions to be had on this and the budget, and our thanks to Alderpeople Carlos Ramirez-Rosa, Jeanette Taylor, and Anthony Beale.